All right, if you have these open up, you should see a picture of some food. So on this set of notes, we're going to start looking at what nutrition is. We talked about the food and we demonstrated that in the lab. So, you know, what is good for us to eat? What is nutrition? What is the difference between nutrition and food? That's what we're going to look at here. As far as an overview, the nutrients are the things that the body uses to promote growth, repair, and maintenance. So the things that you eat, the nutrients that come out of that, that's what your body uses, these things that are absorbed. If you buy food that is in a carton or something, chances are there's stuff added to it to keep it preserved and to increase flavor that may or may not be nutrients for you that your body doesn't actually use. You just end up pooping it out like you would do the other undigestible stuff. There's about 40 nutrients that you need. You can't make it. If something's essential, that means in nutrition land, that means you can't make it and you have to eat it. So you have to get it from your food. Your body can't make it on its own. And then we'll talk more about calories next week, but that's the unit of measure of how much energy is actually in the chemical bonds of the food that you eat, okay? But today we're just gonna look at nutrition. So this is your first picture you have, and the nutrition is looking at food and nutrients. If you're really into food and you like all this stuff, and you know, that's a nutrition major is a good thing to do in college. That you can use to work in a hotel, providing in the nutrition department at a school or a hotel, or you can be a registered dietitian and actually work with people in the food while they're in the hospital or when they're in a clinic. So that's kind of a different sort of healthcare field that we don't talk about a lot. So what is the difference between food and nutrients? Well, food, first, this is not big. Food is what is composed of nutrients. So drag that statement over. It's used as fuel to produce cellular energy. Used as fuel to produce cellular energy. And the energy is measured in calories. So those are three statements that describe what food is. Think of the food as what you're putting in your mouth. Nutrients then are the chemicals that make up the food that you put in your mouth. Okay, so we're going to drag these statements over. They're organic and inorganic substances that are needed for growth and development, maintenance and repairs, and energy. You may have heard the statement, you are what you eat. And that's kind of true, because whatever you put in your mouth, your body is going to take out the nutrients that's there and use that to make muscles, to make new cells, to give you energy, to develop. So if you don't put some healthy stuff in there, then you may be deficient in some of these things. And the other thing statement to drag over there is that most food provides a combination of nutrients. When you're eating a hamburger patty, that's mostly protein, but there's also a little bit of animal starch in the ground meat. And there's also lipids in there. So unless you're taking a capsule of something that's a pure nutrient, the food that we eat is usually a combination of all of the different types of nutrients. And your body will just extract, it breaks it down and uses the building blocks to rebuild what it needs. It's almost like if someone gave you this really cool Lego truck they built out of Legos. You're like, oh, thanks. I hate trucks. I would rather build a spaceship. So you take it apart and rebuild it to the spaceship. That's pretty much what your body does with food, okay? There are 6 different nutrients that we get from our food. So we'll be dragging these over. There's carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Those first 3, drag those over. And then you're going to drag a bracket and a statement that's in bold there. And so drag the big bracket over, and then the statement that says macronutrients. So carbs, fats, and proteins are called macronutrients. That means that you need them in larger amounts than the other ones. That's what macro is referring to. These are the ones that provide energy and structural components to your body. These build more cells, cause the cells to mature and develop. So these are macro. You need them in larger quantities. After proteins, you're going to drag the word water over. You do need water. That's a nutrient. The last two are vitamins and minerals. And for those two, you're going to drag the smaller bracket over, and then the statement about micronutrients. So vitamins and minerals are micronutrients. If macro means you need them in large quantities, then what would micronutrients mean? Yeah, micro means small, so you need vitamins and minerals just in smaller quantities than your macronutrients. They don't actually provide energy, but they are part of the chemical reactions that do provide energy. So it's not directly, we don't take a vitamin and turn it into ATP, because remember ATP is our energy compound. All of these things to do are going to create ATP. So the vitamins and minerals don't actually make it, but they help the reactions occur faster and more frequently in order to make ATP. And then the last, right above the plate, you drag the statement, energy in food is converted to ATP for cells to use. That's an overview of then of what this whole idea of nutrition is. So what we'll look at on this sheet and the next one is each of these nutrients we'll look in a little bit more detail of what they're actually doing. So you'll see the different big squares you have. Those are there's a label on here. So this looks like a drop of water. We're going to talk about water. So you'll drag these three statements over. I think it's four. Most abundant and important inorganic compound in living things. Remember, inorganic typically describes things that do not have the carbon element in it. So water is H2O, there's no carbon in it. It's the most abundant and most important inorganic thing. Everybody needs, your body is mostly water. So you need to take in water to replenish it, or you're going to have some problems. There are no calories in water. It's involved in almost all body functions. And like I said, your body is 60 to 70% water. It doesn't seem like it. Seems like it'd be more muscles and bones and everything, but there's a lot of water within your organs too, that we have to consider that as well. So that's water. The rest of these on this page go with carbohydrates. So those are it's your body's preferred energy source to some degree, depending on which cell it is and how readily it's available. Carbohydrates, they're all broken down into sugar, which too much sugar is toxic to cells. So your body prefers to use this as energy so that it can break it down and get it out of the system. You have about 4 calories per gram of carb. These numbers we'll work with next week. You have 2 types of carbohydrates. They're simple and complex.
notice the color coding that I did. So simple is the purple and complex is blue. So the next two statements are talking about simple and they're purple. The simple ones, they either are 1 or 2 sugars long. And examples of simple carbs are fruits, vegetables, just table sugar, milk, candy would be an example too. Your body, so as we're going through this, keep in mind that you're trying to, when we get to the small intestine, you know, things are digested to the smallest level that it can be. That's the goal. So in sugars, we're trying to get a 1 sugar compound long, like a glucose. That's a simple sugar. It's only 1 ring structure. I'm trying to avoid too much chemistry here because we get into a lot of it. But that's the simple thing. And so since it starts getting broken down in the mouth, like think about a banana or like an orange or some piece of fruit, you know, you taste the sweetness of it, right? Right then. That's part why a lot of people like fruits. You taste it, it's being broken down pretty quickly. The complex carbohydrates is a long chain of these sugar molecules. So it takes longer for them to get completely broken down. They don't end up being broken immediately in the mouth like some of the fruits and sugars and milk stuff does. Example of these would be any kind of grain. So rice, wheat, bread, pasta, cereals. That takes a little longer to digest because it's a full chain. But your body's going to break it down into glucose. That's the goal. So even though you're saying, well, I'm eating, you know, whole wheat bread, if you're trying to watch your amount of the carbs that you're eating, if you eat a lot of bread, that's going to still cause you some problems because it's broken down into sugar, the glucose sugar, just like an orange would be. What helps you with that is when you get grains like this, that gives you it gives you fiber, and it also gives you undigested food that helps your digestion, you know, what we were talking about with if you're constipated. Fiber is cellulose from plant cell walls. You cannot digest it, and it keeps your colon healthy. So put all those things in with carbohydrates. Okay. Your next picture is looking at fats and proteins, minerals, and vitamins. So at the fat statements at the top, we've got quite a few of those. Most dietary lipids, they're either fats or triglycerides, but they can also be considered cholesterol and phospholipids. There are a lot of different kinds of fats that are in your food. So think fats and oils like Crisco, if you have animal fat on your steak, and then oils would be like olive oil, corn oil, those things. Triglycerides, they can be saturated, they can be unsaturated, or they can be trans fats. So I color-coded these as well. So saturated is red, unsaturated is blue, and trans is pink. What makes fats those different categories is the kind of bonds that they have. If they have all single bonds or some double bonds, again, I don't want to go into too much chemistry at this point, but that's kind of what gives the difference there. The saturated fats, that's in red, those come from animals. They typically are solid at room temperature. You could leave it sitting out and it would stay solid. And it will contain all single bonds within its chemical structure. The blue words unsaturated, those are typically lipids from plants, and they tend to be liquid at room temperature. And so they'll have at least one, if not more, double bonds within the chemical structure. Bless you. Now that was a sneeze. So think of if you use olive oil or whatever vegetable oil you use in cooking or whatever, you know, you can, it's liquid all the time. If you put it in the fridge, it'll get a little more solid, but at room temperature, it'll stay liquid. Your trans fats, those are pink. If you read labels on containers, and it says partially hydrogenated oil, that's what those are. What they've done is take an unsaturated fat that tends to be more healthy, and they make it saturated to give that product shelf life within the carton. And those are not good for you. So they don't use them a lot too much anymore, but just avoid those if you're trying to eat healthy. Sorry, this is so small. I didn't realize it'd be this small on the screen. It's hard to tell when I'm making it. Some other things, you have 9 calories per gram. So you're going to get more calories per gram of fat than you would of a carb, although that's not always the only thing to look at when you're trying to eat healthy. What does the fat do for your body? I mean, people like to talk about don't eat fat, it's bad, but you do need fat. You need some fat in your diet because it's a very important part of your cell membrane structure. It also is used to make steroid hormones, so testosterone and estrogen and progesterone. You need some lipids for that, cholesterol primarily. Remember when we talked about nerves and how it had that myelin sheath that increased the speed of transmission? And I told you it's kind of a waxy substance, that you need some fat in your diet to make sure you can make myelin for your nerves. It also is used to cushion and insulate your body organs. And this is where you store long-term energy with the fats. Because it has 9 calories per gram, it has a lot of energy in that little bundle of fat. So your body's going to use the carbs to get energy first, but if you're low in carbs and you don't have any stored up in your liver and glycogen, or if you've used that, then you can break down fat cells for energy. And that's stored in your adipose tissue, which remember that's your fat tissue. And that's the last thing to drag over to the fats. Stores energy in adipose tissue. The circles in the middle, and there's actually an extra one. That's where we're going to put stuff about proteins. So the first circle, and these statements are clumped together, okay? So the first circle, you're going to put in the group of words that say there are 4 calories per gram. So proteins provide as much energy as carbs when you're breaking them down for ATP purposes. They're long chains of amino acids. So amino acids are the simplest form of a protein that's what it gets absorbed in your small intestine is your amino acids. And they have a very specific shape. There's a huge variety of proteins in your body. A lot of your stuff is from protein. So there's a bunch of you have 20 different amino acids, and different combinations of all those 20 can give you a huge variety of proteins that your body uses. The second circle, you're gonna, I just said that. You're gonna drag that statement over. Complete protein contains all 20 amino acids. So if you're eating meat, the meat has all 20. Any kind of animal product will have all 20 amino acids. So eggs, meat, dairy, yeah, pretty much anything. Cheese will have a complete protein. If it's a vegetable, fruits and vegetables, they have some amino acids, but not all of them in one bite. So those would be called incomplete proteins. So if you're eating vegetarian style, then it's important, and you're not eating any meat at all, it's important that you combine plants the right way to make sure within the meal you get all 20 of those, okay? A good combo would be rice and beans. That gives you, there's some amino acids in rice, the other ones are in beans, and so when you eat that together, you're getting a complete protein. Okay, or like cornbread and beans. Or the list is endless. In the third circle, you're going to drag the statement that says 9 of those 20 are essential. And that means if something's essential, when we're talking about food, essential means you can't make it yourself. You have to eat it. So it can't be made by the body, and you must obtain it through the diet. The next circle over, you're going to drag the functions of what proteins are involved in your body. They make up your antibodies, they make up your enzymes, they make up hormones. They're used for storage and for transport. Remember that hemoglobin that is in your blood cells, your red blood cells, to transport oxygen? That's a protein. So lots and lots of functions, like I already mentioned about proteins, for proteins, and why they're so important in your body. So let's say you are, for some reason, you're starving. You literally are not eating food, okay? Through no benefit, if you're just trying to starve yourself, or if you're fasting for a long period of time and not doing it properly, or some people that live in third world countries, or even the United States that just don't get enough food, these functions are super important. Your body is going to get in amino acids from somewhere in order to do this, because this keeps you alive. And it'll get those amino acids, if you're not eating it, from your muscles. Okay, your muscles, your muscle tissue, just like when you eat a cow, when you eat a steak, when you eat chicken, you're eating the muscle of the animal, and those muscles have all the amino acids in them. So if you're not eating it, you have systems in place that will take those, it'll burn, it'll break down your muscle tissue to get the amino acids to keep you alive. And so people that go through that type of situation for a long period of time, they'll just be skin and bones. There's just no muscle, because your body is basically eating itself to keep it alive. The last circle you're going to drag over, structural proteins are fibrous. And these are like actin and myosin. Remember, those are the proteins that make up your muscle tissue. Collagen, which is a connective tissue that is found around all different kinds of organs. And keratin. Keratin is that protein that's in your skin. This is a long time ago, at the beginning of the year, we talked about this. It's the protein in your skin that keeps it waterproofed and gives it that harder structure to protect you. Do y'all have another circle on your notes? Okay, it's blank, so don't just worry about that. So that's your proteins. The last thing we'll mention is vitamins and minerals. So with vitamins, you're going to drag these things over. I think that's the last, nope, this thing. So organic, the word organic, that means it has carbon in it. For the most part, there are a few exceptions, but most of them function as coenzymes, which means they help the enzyme. So if you have, for example, lactase, that's an enzyme that breaks down lactose, the sugar. You may have a vitamin help that process go faster, and so that's what a coenzyme is. It's kind of like your helper, like the accessory organs of your digestive system. They're not part of the chemical reaction, but they just help it. Most of them must be consumed. You have to eat the vitamins, but others you can make, or they're made for you. Like vitamin D, you can make that yourself. It's made in the skin, and you have to have ultraviolet light to do that. That's why it's important to get some sunshine. Just don't get burnt to a crisp, but get some sunshine every day so you can make enough vitamin D. We mentioned in the large intestine how there's some bacteria that are good for you, and they help make vitamin B and vitamin K, so that's where we get those vitamins. You can also get them from plants, but you also get them from animals, from the bacteria. And vitamins can be either fat soluble or water soluble, which means that's where they dissolve. Some of them dissolve in fat tissue, and that's where they're stored. If it's water soluble, if you have more than you need for your body to work, then they just dissolve in water and you pee them out. That's why you typically cannot overdose on water-soluble vitamins. They're not stored in your fat. So vitamin C, vitamin B, those are all water-soluble. So if you take a mega dose of vitamin C because it's trying to make you healthy, you're going to use a little bit more than maybe you need, but the rest of that, you're just peeing it out. So you may need more when you're sick, but if you're healthy, you're not sick, you're kind of wasting your money on that. The fat-soluble ones, those are vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. You can, if you overdose on that, that's stored in your fat tissue, so that can cause some problems for you if you eat too many of that. Just eating food, though, you're not going to overdose. It's people that take the vitamins that have lots and lots of it in there. Then all the rest of your statements go with minerals. So there's 3 bullet points there. These are inorganic. You need 7 of them in moderate amounts. Remember, over in the big scheme of things, you don't need a ton of minerals, but of the minerals that you do need, these 7 you need more than the others. So calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, sodium, chlorine, and magnesium. These are all used in several different places in your body. Calcium we've talked about before with bones, making sure your bones have good density. Phosphorus is, calcium and phosphorus work together to make good, strong bones. Then 12 others are what are called trace minerals. You need them in minute amounts. So zinc, manganese, there's a bunch of different ones. Okay. Questions about this? This is pretty much just a glimpse. You could spend a long time on nutrition. So if this kind of stuff is really interesting to you, you might consider that when you go to college. All right, go ahead and turn these notes in for your second grade for today. The first one came from your lab, and then this is the notes here. I have an assignment on the board, but we're out of time here, almost done. Let me just show you what it is. We'll work on that on Friday. It'll be due Friday instead of today. So I'll go back and change the due date. I know Friday we're also starting to work on your project. That project is not due till Sunday, okay? So your choice whether to start it on Friday or not, this other stuff, but if you have time tonight or tomorrow and you want to get a good start on that, this is the Understanding Nutrition Labels. It shows you a picture of a label, and I'm sure you've seen this, and you're just going to answer a few questions about that, okay? You're going to answer in yellow. So it says, like, if you ate the entire package of the food, how many calories would you consume? So go back, and it tells you that there's 2 servings, and it gives you numbers of where to start, that these numbers correspond with the questions. There's 2 servings, 250 calories per serving. So how many total calories would you eat if you ate the whole package? What? Yeah, 500. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. So you're just going to answer the questions by that. So these numbers here correspond to the numbers up here. Okay? So that's one thing. The other is called macronutrients in food. Actually, I'm probably, yeah. So what you'll do is look at the picture here to help you answer these questions. All right. An element in chemistry is a letter when you're looking at chemical structure. So it says the fats contain 3 elements. So look at the letters. What letters do you see in this chemical structure? H, C, and O. So you'll just say C, oops, H, and O. So use these pictures to help you answer these questions. All right. Same with carbohydrates. There's your picture. Here's your sugar. This is a starch. For proteins, again, here's your pictures. So this will be your goal for sure to finish by Friday, these 2 things, and then start working on your web quest, okay? If you're in Employ Pathway, your assignment is just start working on the web quest. Okay, any questions about any of the assignments or anything?